The Florida sun beat down mercilessly on the small town of Cedar Pines, casting long shadows that danced across the neat rows of suburban houses. It was a seemingly ordinary August afternoon in 2002, but for one family, it would mark the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt them for decades. We begin this story not in the past, but in the present, the day of the arrest. A flurry of blue and red lights reflects off the stucco walls of a modest bungalow, the epicenter of a seismic shift in a case long considered cold. As officers escort a man, now in his late 50s, in handcuffs, neighbors whisper in shock. How could it be him? How could the killer have been so close all these years? To understand the gravity of this moment, we must turn back the clock to a different Cedar Pines, a Cedar Pines where hope still lingered and the air was filled with the laughter of children and the scent of freshly cut grass. In the summer of 2002, 16-year-old Emily Harper was the heart of her community. Known for her infectious smile and artistic talent, Emily was a high school junior with dreams of attending art school in New York. Her mother described her as the kind of person who illuminated every room she entered. Emily's artwork, vibrant and full of life, was a testament to her spirit. It was on a Friday afternoon, the 23rd of August, that Emily vanished. She had spent the day with her best friend, sketching by the lake, a favorite spot that offered both tranquility and inspiration. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily promised her friend she'd call later. That call never came. Her family knew something was wrong when Emily failed to return home by dusk. Her father, a local mechanic, circled the neighborhood with a growing sense of dread. Emily was responsible, always calling if she was going to be late. Panic set in when the usually bustling town felt eerily still, as if holding its breath. The initial response from law enforcement was frustratingly slow. Emily's disappearance was chalked up to teenage rebellion, a phase that would pass, but her parents knew better. They knew Emily wouldn't just walk away from her life, her dreams. Days turned into weeks, and the case grew colder with each passing moment. The community rallied, organizing searches and vigils, their hope flickering like candles in the night. But as time wore on, the leads dwindled, and Emily's laughter became a haunting memory. Then one evening, the phone rang at the Harper residence. A neighbor out for a late-night walk had stumbled upon something unsettling at the edge of the lake. Authorities were called, and the once idyllic spot was soon teeming with police, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons. The discovery was not what anyone had expected. The realization that this peaceful town held secrets darker than its serene facade was only beginning to unfold. And so, the mystery of Emily Harper's disappearance takes root, setting the stage for a journey through years of pain, resilience, and eventual revelation. The question that lingered on everyone's lips: what really happened to Emily Harper? The air that night was thick with anticipation, a palpable tension as officers combed the lakeside. Their flashlights danced over the water's surface, illuminating fragments of a world hidden beneath the murky depths. The discovery that had drawn them here was a small tattered notebook, half submerged in the mud. Its pages were soaked, the ink running like tears, but a few words remained legible. Sketches of the lake, of Emily's dreams, interspersed with cryptic notes that hinted at a troubled heart. As the police gathered evidence, Emily's parents stood at the perimeter, their faces etched with a blend of hope and despair. They watched, clutching each other for support, as the search unfolded. The officers, though professional, were not prepared for the emotional weight of the unfolding tragedy. This was no longer a simple case of a missing teenager. It was becoming something much more sinister. In those critical first 48 hours, the investigation should have been in full swing. Yet crucial opportunities were missed. Key witnesses, like Emily's best friend, were not interviewed immediately. Her insights into Emily's last known whereabouts and state of mind were delayed, lost in a haze of bureaucratic oversight. The police, stretched thin by other commitments, failed to secure the area properly, allowing potential evidence to be compromised. Meanwhile, the town buzzed with rumors. Emily's friends, classmates, and neighbors whispered behind closed doors, each speculating wildly about her fate. For her parents, the silence from the authorities was deafening. They felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. They relied on their community, who banded together to distribute flyers, hoping for a miracle, a sign. any indication of where Emily might be. A break seemed possible when a local fisherman, an elderly man with a reputation for solitude, reported seeing something unusual the day Emily disappeared. He described a car parked near the lake, an unfamiliar sedan with tinted windows, but he couldn't recall the license plate. The lead, promising at first, soon fizzled out as the police struggled to verify the claim. The description was too vague, the timing uncertain, another thread unraveling in a tapestry of confusion. As those first days slipped into a week, the case grew colder, the urgency waning. The lack of progress was a heavy blow to Emily's family, who clung to the hope that she was still alive, somewhere, waiting to be found. Desperation pushed them to hire a private investigator, someone who might see what the police had overlooked. But even this new set of eyes struggled against the tide of lost time and fading memories. Emily's disappearance became a ghost story, whispered about but rarely confronted. Yet beneath the surface, currents continued to shift. Secrets lay dormant, waiting for the right moment to resurface. The first 48 hours had slipped away, but the case of Emily Harper was far from over. And as the sun set once more over the quiet town, casting long shadows over the lake, a single question lingered, haunting those left behind. Where did Emily Harper go, and who was responsible for her vanishing? The urgency in the police station was palpable as Detective Martinez sat down with his team. The clock was ticking, and they all knew the critical importance of these first 48 hours. Yet, despite their efforts, the investigation stumbled right out of the gate. The initial response had been methodical, but far from flawless. Officers canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors, asking questions, but too many critical details slipped through the cracks. Witnesses with pertinent information were overlooked, their accounts dismissed as hearsay or unreliable. Key locations went unchecked, and potential evidence remained in the open, vulnerable to the elements. As the police scrambled, Emily's family was reeling. Her mother, Susan, was a pillar of anguish, her strength eroding with each passing hour. She pleaded with the officers, urging them to look again, to search harder. Her father, John, oscillated between fury and despair, his frustration boiling over in tense confrontations with the investigators. Their home, once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence and the soft, persistent hum of a police scanner. In those early hours, the police had one promising lead: a witness who claimed to have seen a girl matching Emily's description in a diner on the outskirts of town. She was reportedly with a man who seemed out of place, nervous and constantly glancing at the door. The description was chilling, but when officers arrived to interview the staff, the trail went cold. No one could recall seeing Emily or the man, and the security cameras had been malfunctioning for weeks, a critical oversight that would haunt the investigation. Meanwhile, the media descended upon the town, their presence a double-edged sword. On one hand, they amplified the urgency of the case, broadcasting Emily's face across the nation. On the other, they fed the frenzy of speculation, each broadcast a reminder of the police's failure to find her. Back at the station, Detective Martinez reviewed the notes from their interviews. He was haunted by the fisherman's account, the sedan by the lake. Though the lead had fizzled, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was more significant than they realized. He ordered another sweep of the area, hoping against hope that something had been missed. However, it was a different oversight that would soon come to light, one that would shift the course of the investigation. In the haste and chaos, a crucial piece of evidence had been misfiled: a set of tire tracks found near the lake. Initially dismissed as belonging to a park ranger, further examination revealed discrepancies. The tread pattern was unique, inconsistent with any vehicles registered to the ranger service. As the sun rose on the third day, a new sense of urgency gripped the team. The realization that they had overlooked something so vital was a bitter pill to swallow. They now faced a daunting task, retracing their steps, re-examining every piece of evidence with fresh eyes. Emily's family watched with a mix of hope and skepticism. They had been let down before, promises of progress turning to dust. Yet, as the investigation took this new turn, they couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope, the hope that soon someone would find that missing piece, the key to unraveling the mystery of Emily's disappearance. And so the question loomed larger, casting its shadow over the town and all those who called it home. Who was the man at the diner, and how did he fit into the tapestry of Emily's fate? As the sun cast its first light over the sleepy town, Detective Martinez felt the weight of renewed determination. The misfiled tire tracks beckoned with a silent promise of clarity. But as the team delved deeper, the shadows of doubt crept in. Rumors like wildfire had taken root in the community, each whisper another roadblock in their path to truth. The diner, a hub of local gossip, became a breeding ground for speculation. Some pointed fingers at the out-of-towner who had been seen arguing with Emily just days before her disappearance. Others swore they saw a suspicious vehicle trailing her that fateful evening. These whispers, though enticing, led to dead ends and false hope. Pressure mounted, and with it came the inevitable grasp at straws. The investigation turned its gaze onto a man who had been seen loitering near the lake, a drifter with a checkered past. His alibi, shaky at best, made him an easy target for suspicion. But as Martinez and his team peeled back the layers of the drifter's story, they found only tangles of misdirection, his involvement as flimsy as the rumors that had ensnared him. Days stretched into weeks, each one a reminder of their inability to bring Emily back. The case began to cool, the once fiery urgency now a flickering ember. Leads dried up, and the community's whispers grew into a dull roar of frustration and blame. The police, once hailed as the town's protectors, now bore the brunt of its disappointment. Emily's family, caught in the quagmire of grief and uncertainty, clung to the hope that the overlooked evidence might still light their darkened path. Yet as the trail grew colder, so too did their faith in the system meant to deliver justice. In the silence that followed, Detective Martinez found himself staring at the tire tread patterns, the unique design still a tantalizing puzzle. It was a reminder of what they had, an incomplete picture, a ghost of a lead in a case haunted by absence. His thoughts turned to the man at the diner, the spectre whose presence lingered like a shadow over their every move. Was he the missing piece, or merely another phantom in a town plagued by uncertainty? The investigation had hit a wall, the blinding light of potential breakthroughs now a dim glow in the rearview mirror. But in the quiet of his office, Martinez knew that this was not the end. Somewhere within the intricate web of small-town secrets and half-truths lay the key to Emily's fate. And though the answers eluded them now, the town's darkest mystery would not remain unsolved forever. As he closed his eyes, the tire tracks danced behind his lids, a reminder that sometimes the smallest details hold the greatest significance. And in the stillness of his thoughts, another question formed, one that refused to be silenced. What had they missed? And who else might be hiding in plain sight? The morning sun crept through the blinds of Detective Martinez's office, casting stripes of light across the scattered files. The air was heavy with the weight of unsolved questions. The town's patience was wearing thin, and the pressure to find answers was mounting. Rumors had started to swirl like a tempest. The once quiet town of Cedar Ridge was now buzzing with speculation. Fingers pointed in every direction, neighbors eyed each other with suspicion, and the palpable tension threatened to unravel the fabric of the community. In the midst of this storm, 3 names surfaced, each a potential suspect, yet none fitting seamlessly into the narrative of Emily's disappearance. First, there was Tom Jensen, the reclusive mechanic whose shop sat at the town's edge. Known for his erratic behavior and a penchant for solitude, whispers about his involvement grew louder. Some claimed they had seen him lurking near the diner on the night Emily vanished, but his alibi was rock solid, backed by the unwavering testimony of his brother, who swore they had spent the evening working on an old Chevy until dawn. Next, the spotlight turned to Susan Carter, a waitress at the diner and an acquaintance of Emily's. The town's gossips were quick to latch onto her past, a tumultuous relationship that had ended in a restraining order. Her name surfaced in hushed conversations, fueled by jealousy and the suggestion of a bitter altercation with Emily over a mutual friend. Yet when questioned, Susan provided a detailed account of her whereabouts, corroborated by the surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store. Lastly, there was Hank Mitchell, a drifter with a penchant for trouble. He had appeared in Cedar Ridge just weeks before Emily's disappearance, his presence unsettling to some. The police had received numerous tips about Hank's suspicious activities, but each lead dissolved under scrutiny. His pattern was that of a wanderer, someone who drifted in and out of lives, leaving only whispers in his wake. As the investigation stalled, so did hope. The community's faith in the system waned, and Emily's family found themselves trapped in an endless cycle of grief and unanswered questions. The case, once a beacon of urgency, was now enveloped in a fog of doubt. Detective Martinez, undeterred by the lack of progress, returned to his desk, sifting through reports with a meticulous eye. He knew the truth was buried somewhere within the noise. His mind lingered on the tire tread patterns, a detail as elusive as it was significant. It was a thread that could unravel the entire mystery, yet it remained tantalizingly out of reach. In the shadows of doubt, Martinez pondered the man at the diner again, the enigma whose presence was a constant reminder that appearances could be deceiving. Was he a mere bystander, or did he hold the key to unlocking Emily's fate? As he pieced together the scattered fragments of evidence, the phone on his desk rang, shattering the silence. It was a call from the lab, a voice delivering news that ignited a spark of hope. A partial DNA match had surfaced, linking an unidentified sample to a family member in the state database. It was a glimmer of a breakthrough, a tenuous connection that could breathe new life into a case on the brink of collapse. Martinez knew this was the moment they had been waiting for. The investigation, once stagnant, was about to take a new and unexpected turn, and as he prepared to follow this new lead, the question that had haunted him began to shift. Not who had they missed, but what did they now have the power to uncover? Detective Martinez's heart raced with cautious optimism as he absorbed the lab's revelation. The partial DNA match was not the conclusive answer they'd hoped for, but it was a thread, a fragile lifeline that could lead them out of the darkness. Yet, as the initial excitement settled, the enormity of the task ahead loomed large. They needed to identify the person connected to this DNA, a challenge that seemed almost insurmountable given the years that had passed. He immediately called for a meeting with the team, hoping to leverage collective insight. As they gathered, each investigator's face mirrored a mixture of hope and skepticism. Martinez presented the findings, urging them to focus on the potential familial connections. He emphasized the need for discretion, aware that any premature assumptions could derail their progress. The search led them through a web of connections, each more complex than the last. They interviewed distant relatives, old acquaintances, anyone who might have had a brush with the individual linked by DNA. But as the days turned into weeks, their efforts yielded little more than dead ends and vague recollections. The family ties were too distant, the memories too faded. In the small town where Emily had lived, rumors began to circulate. Whispers of suspects, old boyfriends, disgruntled neighbors, even strangers passing through grew louder. The coffee shops buzzed with theories, each more speculative than the last. Some pointed fingers at a local mechanic, known for his temper, while others suspected an ex-convict who had recently moved back to town. None of these leads, however, held any substantial evidence. The community's murmurs found their way into the investigation. The pressure to find answers intensified as public opinion swayed with each new rumor. The media latched onto the story, sensationalizing every scrap of information, further clouding the truth. Martinez, feeling the weight of expectation, knew they were on the brink of losing control of the narrative. The case was slipping into the realm of cold cases, where facts gave way to folklore. Each day without progress was a reminder of the promise he'd made to Emily's family, to bring them closure, to find the truth. In a moment of desperation, Martinez revisited the diner, hoping to find something he might have overlooked. The man, the enigma, was no longer there, and his presence had faded into a ghost of a memory for the regulars. Yet, as he sat at the counter sipping a bitter coffee, he couldn't shake the feeling that the answer was just beyond his grasp. Frustration simmered beneath the surface as Martinez returned to the precinct. He knew the investigation was nearing a standstill, the momentum they'd briefly gained dissipating. The DNA thread, once promising, now seemed like a cruel tease. But as he stared at the board of evidence, an idea began to form. A radical, unconventional approach that might just breathe life back into the investigation. He called a team meeting, his voice calm but determined. They needed to revisit every piece of evidence with fresh eyes, to question assumptions and challenge the narrative that had formed. It was a gamble, a last-ditch effort to unearth what had been missed. As the team dispersed, energized by the new plan, Martinez felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but he knew they were closer than ever to uncovering the truth. And as the clock ticked down on another day, one question lingered in the air. Could they defy the odds and finally break the case wide open? The precinct buzzed with the renewed fervor of Martinez's team. Each member bent over files, scrutinizing every detail with fresh determination. But outside these walls, life in the small Florida town settled into an uneasy rhythm. The case, once the pulse of the community, faded into a distant echo. Emily's disappearance became a cautionary tale whispered among parents, a ghost story to keep children close to home. For Emily's family, however, time did not heal wounds. Her mother, Sarah, kept vigil by a window that looked out onto the street where Emily used to play. Her father, Tom, withdrew into himself, his once hearty laugh now absent from the family home. They clung to hope like a lifeline, each anniversary of her disappearance marked by a quiet, somber gathering that dwindled in attendance as the years passed. Desperate for answers, they turned to a private investigator, a retired detective named Frank, known for his tenacity and unconventional methods. Frank's arrival was like a whisper in a storm, quiet but persistent. He pored over the case files, retraced steps long since washed away by time, and spoke to witnesses whose memories had grown hazy with the years. Frank's presence offered a glimmer of hope, yet the town had moved on. New families settled in, unaware of the tragedy etched into the fabric of their community. The local diner, once a hub of speculation, became just another stop for tourists seeking a taste of small-town charm. Still, Sarah never wavered. She kept Emily's room untouched, a shrine to her daughter's memory, and joined online forums dedicated to unsolved cases, sharing her story with others who bore similar burdens. A small but dedicated community rallied around her, offering support and tips, though none ever led to the breakthrough she so desperately sought. As the years stretched into decades, the case gathered dust in the precinct's cold case files, its box buried beneath the weight of more recent tragedies. But Martinez, now a seasoned detective, never forgot. The promise he made to Emily's family echoed in his mind, driving him to push the boundaries of conventional investigation. Then, one cold winter morning, a breakthrough arrived not from a detective's revelation, but from a technological advance that had once seemed like science fiction. DNA technology had leaped forward, offering new hope to cases long thought unsolvable. Martinez seized the opportunity, advocating for Emily's case to be re-examined with these cutting-edge tools. As the precinct prepared to revisit the evidence, the community, once again, found itself on edge. Whispers of the investigation's revival spread like wildfire, rekindling old fears and hopes in equal measure. Yet as the town held its breath, a question loomed large. Would this be the moment that shattered the silence, or would it only deepen the mystery that had haunted them for so long? The winter chill clung to the air as whispers of the revived investigation swirled through the town, a ghostly echo of a past many had tried to forget. The renewed scrutiny brought a strange mix of relief and anxiety to those who had lived through the initial shock and sorrow. For Sarah, it was as if Emily's disappearance had happened just yesterday. The pain had never truly faded. It had merely been buried beneath the layers of time. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, her fingers tracing the edges of a faded photograph of Emily. The image was a snapshot of a life cut short, a moment forever frozen in time. Her heart ached with the familiar longing for answers, for justice, for closure. The online community she was part of had become a lifeline, a place where she could vent her frustrations and share her hopes with others who understood the weight of not knowing. In the years that followed Emily's disappearance, Sarah had become more than just a grieving mother. She transformed into a relentless advocate, organizing searches and rallies and pushing for legislative changes to aid families of the missing. Her determination was unwavering, even as the world around her seemed to move on. The town itself had changed over the years. New buildings sprang up, old ones were torn down, and the landscape shifted subtly with the passage of time. Yet, beneath the surface, the mystery of Emily's disappearance lingered like an unhealed wound. For those who remembered, the case was a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that could lurk just out of sight. Detective Martinez, now a mentor to younger officers, had never allowed the case to fade from his thoughts. He had watched as the world of forensic science evolved, each advancement a glimmer of hope for cold cases like Emily's. The new DNA technology was a game-changer, and he pushed hard to ensure Emily's case was at the forefront of this scientific revolution. As the evidence was painstakingly re-examined, the town held its collective breath. The anticipation was palpable, mingling with a fear of disappointment that had become all too familiar. Sarah attended community meetings where the investigation's progress was discussed in hushed tones, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. At one such meeting, a young woman approached Sarah, her eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and empathy. She introduced herself as a journalist, part of a new generation driven to uncover the truth. She had followed Emily's case for years, drawn to its haunting complexity and the tenacity of those who refused to let it fade into obscurity. The journalist's questions were probing but respectful, and Sarah found herself sharing details she had long kept private. As they spoke, an unexpected bond formed, a shared understanding of the importance of keeping Emily's memory alive. The journalist promised to bring fresh eyes to the case, to look where others had not thought to look. As the community waited for news, the silence that had once been suffocating began to crack. The renewed attention on the case sparked old memories and unearthed forgotten details, as if the town itself was awakening from a long slumber. But with each passing day, the question remained: would the breakthrough come, or would the silence return deeper and more impenetrable than before? The sunlight filtered through the library's tall windows, casting long shadows over the dusty shelves where Sarah sat, surrounded by stacks of old newspapers and police reports. Each page she turned was a reminder of the years that had slipped by, years filled with birthdays uncelebrated, holidays without laughter, and the ever-present ache of Emily's absence. Sarah had learned to navigate the world by carrying this weight, but it never got easier. Her life, once vibrant and full of promise, had become a series of routines meant to fill the void Emily had left behind. Yet in the quiet moments when the world was still, memories of Emily would flood back, the sound of her laughter echoing in Sarah's mind. The town, too, had learned to move forward, albeit with a limp. The bustling streets of 2002 had given way to a quieter, more subdued atmosphere. New families had moved in, unaware of the tragedy that had once gripped the community. The local coffee shops and diners buzzed with life, yet beneath the surface there lingered a shared unspoken understanding, a recognition of what had been lost. Sarah's frequent visits to the police station had dwindled over the years as the updates became less frequent, each one a painful reminder of the case's stagnation. But she never stopped hoping. She couldn't. Emily deserved that much. Detective Martinez, though nearing retirement, remained doggedly committed to the case. His once dark hair now streaked with grey, he had become a fixture in the department, a symbol of persistence and dedication. He often found himself lingering at his desk long after others had left, poring over old files, searching for something, anything, that might have been overlooked. Both he and Sarah were sustained by the same stubborn hope, the hope that one day the silence would break. Meanwhile, the journalist, whose name was Mia, quickly became an ally in Sarah's quest for answers. With fresh eyes and a relentless drive, she delved into Emily's case, uncovering overlooked details and following leads long considered cold. Her articles began to breathe new life into the investigation, capturing the attention of a wider audience and reigniting interest in the case. The community, once resigned to the silence, began whispering again. Rumors spread, fueled by Mia's discoveries and the whispers of those who still remembered that fateful day in 2002. Some spoke of strange encounters, others of suspicious behaviors long forgotten. A neighbor recalled an unfamiliar car parked down the street, while another mentioned a man seen loitering near the school. With each revelation, Sarah felt the stirrings of a long-dormant hope. Yet with hope came fear, the fear that the silence would return, leaving them with nothing but the ache of unanswered questions. As Mia's investigation gained momentum, she uncovered a startling connection, one that hinted at a potential suspect who had managed to elude scrutiny for decades. The pieces began to fit together in a way they never had before, and the possibility of closure loomed on the horizon. But as Mia prepared to share her findings with Detective Martinez, a sense of urgency gripped her. Time was of the essence, and she knew that this was more than just a story. It was a chance to bring justice for Emily and peace for Sarah. In the midst of this renewed fervor, the question remained, would they finally have the answers they so desperately sought, or would the silence reclaim its hold, drawing them back into an abyss of uncertainty? The morning sun crept over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the small Florida town. Inside the precinct, Detective Martinez sat across from Mia, his face a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. The evidence she had collected lay scattered across the table, each piece a potential key to the puzzle that had haunted them all for so long. Mia leaned forward, her voice steady yet charged with urgency. "I've been going through old police records, and something stood out. A name that keeps appearing in the margins, almost like a ghost at the fringes of Emily's life." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "It's someone who was never fully investigated, someone who had access to the area, and whose alibi was never thoroughly checked." Detective Martinez nodded, his mind racing through the possibilities. The precinct had received a new piece of technology, a state-of-the-art genetic genealogy tool that promised to breathe new life into dormant cases. Until now, it had been a tool of potential, waiting for the right moment, the right case. Mia continued, this time her voice tinged with hope. "We have a chance here. With this new technology, if we can run the DNA found on Emily's belongings through the genealogy database, we might finally pinpoint connections we couldn't see before. It could lead us to the family of our suspect, maybe even directly to him." Martinez leaned back, the enormity of the opportunity dawning upon him. But there was a catch. The resources were limited, and the precinct had to prioritize their use. He hesitated, knowing the decision would not be easy. "We need to be sure," he began, choosing his words carefully, "that this isn't just another dead end. We have to proceed with caution." Mia's eyes met his, her determination unyielding. "I know this is asking a lot, but every instinct tells me we're onto something. If we don't take this chance, we might be condemning Emily's memory to the shadows forever." The room was silent, the gravity of the decision palpable. Martinez picked up one of the photographs, studying the youthful face of a girl whose life had been cut tragically short. He sighed, a decision forming in his mind. "We'll run the tests. But Mia, if this doesn't lead anywhere, it could be our last shot." Mia nodded, relief washing over her. "Thank you, Detective. I believe this will be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." As the day wore on, the lab technicians moved swiftly, their expertise turning hope into action. The genetic genealogy tool whirred to life, its algorithms working tirelessly to trace the DNA strands back through generations, seeking a match that could shatter the case wide open. Meanwhile, outside the precinct, the community was abuzz with anticipation. Rumors of a new lead had spread like wildfire, rekindling old conversations and drawing long-buried secrets to the surface. Sarah, Emily's mother, found herself at the center of a storm she had both feared and longed for. Her heart clenched with each passing hour, torn between hope and dread. And so the hours ticked by, each second marked by the relentless pursuit of truth. As night fell, the results finally came in. A single name, connected by a thin but undeniable thread of DNA. The revelation sent shockwaves through the small office, a whisper of vindication. But as Detective Martinez stared at the name, a chill ran down his spine. It was a name he recognized, a name that was never meant to be connected to such darkness. The implications were staggering, and the responsibility to act weighed heavily on his shoulders. The time had come to confront the past, to bring the shadows into the light. Yet as they prepared to act, the question loomed larger than ever. Would justice finally prevail, or would it slip through their fingers once again? Detective Martinez sat in his office, the soft glow of the desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls. The name on the report seemed to pulse with its own eerie light, each letter a challenge to everything he thought he knew about the town and its people. He felt the weight of each syllable as he whispered it aloud, trying to reconcile the name with the image of the man he had known for years. It was a name that belonged to someone who had attended every town hall meeting, who had seemed an unwavering pillar of the community. Yet here it was, in black and white, tethered to the DNA evidence that could finally answer the questions that had haunted so many for so long. The next step was inevitable. Martinez knew he had to take this to his superiors, had to marshal the full weight of the law, to ensure that justice would be served. But first, he needed to speak with Sarah. She deserved to hear this news from him, and she needed to prepare for what was to come. As he drove to Sarah's house, the night air felt heavy with anticipation. Every turn of the road seemed to echo the journey they had all been on for decades, a winding path full of pain and resilience. He pulled up to the small, weather-beaten home where Sarah lived. The light in the window flickered warmly, a beacon of hope amid the darkness. Inside, Sarah was seated at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. She looked up as Martinez entered, her eyes searching his face for any sign of what was to come. "I've got news, Sarah." His voice was gentle but firm, the resolve of a man determined to see this through. Her breath caught, a small gasp escaping as she nodded, urging him to continue. "The DNA, it matched someone in the community, someone we both know." The weight of the revelation hung between them, and he watched as a myriad of emotions played across her face: shock, disbelief, and finally a fierce determination. "Who is it, detective?" Her voice was steady, a testament to the strength she had found over the years. He hesitated for the briefest moment, knowing the impact of the name he was about to utter. But the truth had to be told. "It's Mark Thompson." The name fell like a stone into still water, rippling outwards in waves of shock. Sarah's eyes widened, her mind racing back through years of interactions, of moments that now seemed tainted by this new knowledge. Mark. But how? Why? "We're going to find out," Martinez assured her, the promise of action solidifying in his mind. "It's time to confront him, to get the answers we've all been waiting for." As the first glimmers of dawn crept across the horizon, Martinez and his team prepared for the confrontation that would either cement their hopes or unravel them entirely. The town still slumbered, unaware of the storm about to break over its unsuspecting head. But as the sun rose higher, the tension in the air was palpable. Would this be the moment they had longed for, the moment justice would finally be served? Only time would tell, and the stakes had never been higher. The drive to Mark Thompson's house was tense, the car filled with a charged silence, broken only by the murmur of the police radio. Martinez's mind raced through the implications of the DNA match, each thought a question that demanded answers. How had Mark, a man who had been part of the community's fabric for so long, managed to hide in plain sight? As they approached the modest suburban home, the quiet morning seemed at odds with the storm of emotions brewing within. The team moved with precision, each step a testament to the years spent waiting for this moment. Martinez's heart pounded in his chest, a steady drumbeat of anticipation and dread. They knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the stillness. Moments stretched into eternity before the door swung open. Mark stood there, his expression one of confusion and mild annoyance, unaware of the seismic shift about to occur in his world. "Detective Martinez." Mark's voice was steady, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, a shadow of recognition perhaps, or a hint of the truth he had kept buried for so long. "Mark, we need to talk." Detective Martinez's voice was firm, the authority of his position underscored by the gravity of the situation. Mark hesitated, his gaze flickering between the detectives and the cruisers parked discreetly down the street. The weight of their presence was inescapable, and slowly the realization began to dawn in his eyes. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Mark settled into a chair, his posture defensive, arms crossed as if to shield himself from the inevitable. Martinez took a seat opposite him, the table a symbolic barrier between past deception and present truth. "We have evidence, Mark. DNA evidence." Martinez's words cut through the silence like a knife, each syllable deliberate, measured. Mark's mask slipped for a fraction of a moment, a twitch of the jaw, a flicker of fear. It was enough. In that instant, the facade he had maintained for so long began to crack. "I don't know what you're talking about." His voice, though steady, lacked the conviction it once held. Martinez leaned forward, eyes fixed on Mark's, searching for the chink in the armor. "The science doesn't lie, Mark. We know it was you. We know about Sarah." The name lingered in the air, a ghost of the past come back to haunt. Mark's composure wavered, the pressure of years of secrets threatening to collapse. As the minutes ticked by, Martinez pressed on, each question a relentless pursuit of the truth. The room became a crucible, the heat of interrogation burning away the layers of deceit. Finally, a pause, a silence filled with the weight of an impending confession. Mark's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." His words were soft, almost lost in the heavy air of the room. Martinez felt a mix of triumph and sorrow. The truth was coming to light, but at a cost, a reminder of the lives forever changed. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the lawn. The town began to stir, oblivious to the revelations unfolding within these four walls. And as Mark began to unravel the story of that fateful night, the pieces of a long unsolved puzzle slowly fell into place. Mark's voice quivered as he spoke, the words tumbling out like loose stones from a crumbling wall. "It was never supposed to happen. We were just kids, fooling around. Things got out of hand." Martinez maintained his gaze, listening intently. He knew this was the moment they had been waiting for, the breakthrough that would finally bring justice to Sarah and closure to her family. "Tell me about that night, Mark," Martinez urged, his tone firm yet laced with empathy. "Tell me what happened." Mark exhaled deeply, as if trying to expel years of guilt with a single breath. "We were at the old pier. It was late, and the tide was coming in strong. Sarah, she wanted to leave, but I was angry. We argued, and I pushed her. She hit her head on the railing and fell into the water. I tried to save her, but the current was too strong." Martinez nodded, absorbing the confession, knowing that the truth was rarely as simple as it seemed. The DNA evidence had placed Mark at the scene, but it was the small details, the ones only Mark could know, that now confirmed his involvement beyond doubt. The lab results had been a revelation. After years of dead ends, a new technique had been developed that could extract usable DNA from the smallest, most degraded samples. The pier had been searched thoroughly back in 2002, but it wasn't until recent advancements allowed investigators to revisit the evidence with fresh eyes that the breakthrough came. A single hair, caught on the splintered wood of the railing, had unlocked the past. "Mark," Martinez pressed, "why didn't you come forward then? Why all these years of silence?" Mark looked down, shame etched into his features. "I was scared. I thought they'd never believe me. I thought I could just bury it, live my life and forget." But it never went away. Outside the window, the sun cast sharp angles against the walls, a silent reminder that time moved on, indifferent to the struggles within. But inside, the clock seemed to have stopped as Mark's confession hung heavy in the air. Martinez leaned back, allowing the gravity of the moment to settle. The science had spoken, but it was Mark's words that provided the true resolution. Yet, as the pieces fell into place, the question of motive still lingered. Was it truly an accident, or had there been something darker at play? "Mark, what about Sarah's diary?" Martinez asked, shifting the conversation to a new angle. "It mentioned someone she was afraid of." Mark hesitated, the weight of new secrets threatening to resurface. There was a pause, a beat where the past and present collided, and then, as if opening a floodgate within himself, Mark whispered, "It wasn't just me she was scared of." The revelation hung in the air, a new thread in the narrative waiting to be unraveled. As Martinez processed this, he knew they were on the brink of uncovering a deeper layer of truth, one that might implicate more than just Mark. The clock ticked on, each second a reminder that justice, though delayed, was now inevitable. Yet the question remained, what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows of Sarah's past? It wasn't just me she was scared of. Martinez's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward, sensing the weight of Mark's words. There was an urgency in the air, a feeling that the very essence of truth was within reach. Who else, Mark? Who was she afraid of? Mark's gaze was distant, as if searching through the corridors of his memory for a door he had long kept shut. The name slipped from his lips like a ghostly whisper, one that seemed to echo around the room. Pastor John. The revelation was as startling as it was unsettling. Pastor John had been a fixture in the community, a beacon of faith and moral guidance. His sermons had filled the local church with hope, and his presence had been a source of comfort for many. But beneath this benevolent veneer lay a different story, one that had remained hidden for far too long. "Pastor John?" Martinez repeated, disbelief mingling with the surge of understanding that followed. What did he have to do with Sarah? Mark hesitated, the struggle within him evident. It was as if he were peeling back layers of his soul, revealing scars long hidden. "She confided in me once," Mark began, his voice tinged with regret. "She said he would come to her house, and when her parents weren't home, said he was helping her with spiritual guidance. But there was something about the way she said it, something that didn't feel right." Martinez's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle that had been incomplete for too long. Pastor John's visits, cloaked in the guise of mentorship, now appeared sinister, predatory. It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was beginning to align with a horrifying reality. The hair, the diary, it's all pointing to him, Martinez murmured, almost to himself. But how did he manage to stay hidden all these years? Mark's expression darkened, a shadow of comprehension passing over him. People see what they want to see. Pastor John, he was good at that. He made people believe he was above reproach. And anyone who doubted, well, they kept it to themselves. Like me. The weight of these revelations pressed heavily on Martinez. The breakthrough was within reach, but the journey was not yet complete. There remained the task of confronting this man who had seemingly eluded justice under the very eyes of those he deceived. As the day waned, Martinez knew the next steps were clear. The evidence, the testimonies, all led to a confrontation long overdue. With resolve hardening within him, he prepared for the inevitable arrest, knowing the shockwaves it would send through a community built on trust and faith. Yet, for the first time, the path to justice appeared unobstructed. The clock ticked, each second a reminder that the shadows could no longer hide the truth. The arrest of Pastor John was imminent, and with it, the final unraveling of a mystery that had plagued the town for decades. As dawn broke over the sleepy Florida town, a sense of unease settled in. Pastor John's arrest was not just imminent, it was necessary. Martinez, alongside a team of officers, moved with quiet determination, their footsteps echoing the gravity of their mission. The community, unaware of the storm about to break, went about their morning routines, oblivious to the seismic shift about to unfold within their midst. The church's stained glass windows glowed softly in the morning light, casting colorful shadows on the ground. Inside, Pastor John stood at the pulpit, rehearsing his sermon in solitude. His voice, usually a beacon of comfort, now seemed hollow, echoing off the walls of a sanctuary that had long harbored secrets. The doors swung open, and Martinez stepped inside with an air of authority tinged with sorrow. The quiet hum of the town's life seemed to hold its breath as officers moved to flank the pastor. Pastor John, eyes widening with a mix of disbelief and indignation, began to protest, his words tumbling out like a preacher's plea for mercy. "What is this about, officer? Surely there must be a mistake. I am a man of God, not a criminal." Martinez met his gaze, unwavering. His voice was steady, yet laced with the weight of countless sleepless nights spent chasing shadows. "The evidence speaks otherwise, Pastor. We're here to arrest you for the murder of Emily Carter." The name hung in the air, a ghost finally given voice. The congregation, slowly gathering for morning service, watched in stunned silence as their trusted guide was led away in handcuffs. Whispers of disbelief and denial rippled through the crowd, their faith in the man eroding like sand beneath a rising tide. In the sterile confines of the interrogation room, Pastor John sat, hands clasped together as if in prayer. The clock ticked mercilessly, a metronome marking the passage of time in a room where truth was the only currency. Across from him, Martinez laid out the evidence, each piece a testament to Emily's unvoiced cries for justice. "Pastor John, it's time to tell the truth. Emily deserves that much," Martinez implored, his voice a blend of empathy and resolve. The pastor's facade began to crack, the weight of his deeds pressing down like a confessional burden. His eyes, once sharp with conviction, now seemed lost, searching for absolution in a sea of guilt. Slowly, haltingly, he began his confession, a tale of manipulation and betrayal cloaked in the guise of spiritual guidance. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Pastor John murmured, his voice barely more than a whisper. "It was supposed to be a lesson, a test of faith. But she resisted." As his words spilled forth, the horror of Emily's final moments emerged, painting a picture of a life stolen too soon. Martinez listened, his heart heavy with the knowledge that justice, while served, could never restore what had been lost. The trial was swift, the evidence irrefutable. The community, once blinded by trust, now stood united in a quest for justice. Pastor John was sentenced to life imprisonment, a fate befitting the man who had masqueraded as a shepherd while preying on his flock. For Emily's family, the verdict brought a bittersweet sense of closure. Her parents, faces etched with the lines of grief and resilience, spoke to a town gathered to remember a daughter whose light had been extinguished too soon. Emily was more than a victim, her mother said, her voice steady despite the tears. She was a beacon of hope, a reminder that love and truth will always find their way, even through the darkest of nights. As the community rebuilt, the church stood as a symbol of redemption, a reminder of the shadows that had once lurked within its walls and the light that had finally banished them. And for Martinez, the case became a testament to perseverance and the relentless pursuit of justice. In the end, Emily's story was one of resilience, a narrative that spoke to the power of memory and the enduring strength of those who seek the truth, no matter how long it takes. And as the sun set over the town, its golden rays illuminated a community forever changed, yet stronger for having faced its past and emerged into the light.